You get what's going on. Glad you could be here today. We're about to talk about the 23 anime that got me through quarantine. These are my preferences, these are my opinions, my experiences, and they're gonna differ from yours, you know? It's like anything. That's just how it works. Okay, so F tier, these are shows that I did not like and they were very hard to get through.
What do you want?
Nothing.
You were looking at me.
You were in front of me.
So the one that I liked the least was Fruits Basket. It's a show about a girl who's kind of really poor. She doesn't have a house because her parents are dead or something. And then she finds these guys who are not, they have more money than she does. So then she lives with them because they're so nice. And also they are apparently, if you touch them, they turn into one of the zodiac animals. So like this one guy turns into a dog, and another guy's a rabbit or something, but only when they're touched by someone of the opposite gender, and it's like a romance or whatever. It wasn't for me. The protagonist's only trait is that she's really nice. So if you're in a like romance whatever, this is probably for you. It was not for me, and that's why I gave it a 42 out of 100. That is the bottom of F tier.
I'd feel bad causing trouble for a girl who's disabled. Want?
Guilty Crown's a show about a guy who lives in a world where there's a virus, and the virus takes over your body, and so the government starts just committing genocide against people who have the virus. But then the protagonist accidentally gets a serum that lets him take the soul out of people and turn it into a weapon or something like that. It seems like somebody who really likes animes took their favorite parts from like 50 different ones and put it into one show, and they don't go together because it does not make sense. It's also very kind of formulaic and boring, and you feel like nobody has any motivation to act or do what it is that anyone is doing. So that's why I gave it a 48 out of 100. D tier. So it's not completely worthless, but it was not my favorite. I probably would not, I would definitely not watch it a second time. I might not choose to have watched them if I knew now what I know about the shows in the present. I would not go back in time to re-experience them.
How did you know about that?
I knows all things, past, future, present.
How did you know about that?
So at the bottom, we have Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's about a guy who finally gets over his awkward stage where he's like really cringe and like pretends to be this like cool, edgy, dark, whatever guy. And so he's trying to reinvent himself in school. But then all that gets challenged when this one girl who's going through what he used to go through now takes a liking to him, and she's trying to hang out with him all the time. And he's like, no, get out of here. You're so cringe. Take off that eye patch, you're not even blind. The characters are kind of cute, but they're also kind of really annoying. It's a girl who just sleeps all the time, and there's another girl who's just more cringe when she's younger, and a guy who wants to play guitar but instead becomes bald. If that sounds like something you'd like, then this might be for you. It's a romance, I guess, and that's why I gave it a 54 out of 100. All right, so now we're on the 20th best one out of 23.
For real, just felt that.
Death March to a Parallel World Rhapsody. That took several times to say. It's about a guy who's a video game developer, and he's just always so overworked, so he goes to sleep and he wakes up and oh my gosh, now he's inside of a video game. And he accidentally he commits genocide against like hundreds of goblin people, and now he's a really high level, so he's very powerful in this game. Basically, it's creepy, it's very pedophile-y. There's like a lot of little girls who make like bizarre advances at him just constantly, and they make a point to be like, oh my gosh, that girl's so cute. What, she's 13? That's so weird for a 13-year-old. So it's very uncomfortable. I did not enjoy this really at all, and the action scenes were very not good. They cut a lot of corners. The world design was not cool. Out of all the isekai animes I've seen, this was not a favorite. And then the romance even. It's just a harem anime, so if you want to watch a bunch of girls try to like one person and that guy choose none of them to date, this is the show for you.
Now boys, would you mind joining us in the car? Okay, you two. Behave yourself.
The Devil's a Part-Timer is a nice, relaxing, peaceful anime. It's about a guy who's like this really powerful evil villain in another world, and then, oh no, he has to escape because the good guy is gonna kill him. So he escapes to this other world, and it turns out the other world is our world. So now he's poor, and he can't be evil anymore, and his henchman guy that came with him is really smart, but he can't work because he's always getting sick. So now he has to work at McDonald's, and that's just so silly. The gimmick kind of wears off. The humor is all right. It's not amazing. Some people love this, and if you love this, I get why you love it. I just did not particularly enjoy this all that much. And that is why I gave it a 58 out of 100. C. All right, this is a good one. So C is just like shows that I thought were pretty dang good, but I would not watch them again because they were not that good. So they're good, but like that's it. That's all you get. One watch. This is 17, I think.
You don't love this world or the people who live in it, so you have no right to be in charge.
Sword Art Online Alicization is the continuation of the Sword Art Online show. And now there's a new video game. Kirito, he's got to live in there because he gets injured and he has to reform his brain. It's just an excuse to put the Kirito back in a video game. This video game is not particularly interesting because the characters are not super cool. There's a blonde guy who's really nice and he's trying to live his own life and not do what people want him to do, but it's so hard. The action scenes are fine. I actually really liked the original Sword Art Online. It was the first anime I ever saw, but this just did not hit that spot for me. There were cool moments, there were cool arcs, but overall, this show was fine. And that is why I gave it a 61 out of 100.
You wonder if I'm all right?
Anohana is an anime about a guy that when he was a kid, he and his friends were hanging out, and then this one chick was like, hey, I bet you like that other chick. They're all like 5, by the way. And he's like, no, I don't. And then she's like, yeah, you do. And he's like, no, I don't. In fact, I hate her. And then that girl, like the girl who they said had the third girl number 2 runs away. And then when she runs away, she falls down a cliff and she dies. And everyone feels so sad about it because she's no longer alive and it's all their fault. But now she came back as a ghost, but the only person who can see her is the guy who said, I hate you, and made her die. It's cute. The characters are kind of interesting, but they're also pretty unlikable. And the ending was very emotional. Everyone says this is the show to watch if you want to cry. Unfortunately, I remain dry-eyed. I cannot cry. So it was just fine. It was pretty good. It was better than some other ones. And that is why I gave it a 64.
Oh, I see. The palm thing.
Use a tissue dip!
Toradora is another romance anime that I watched because I was trying to give that genre a try. And it's about a guy who's everyone thinks he's a jerk because he looks so mean, but in fact, he's actually kind of not nice. And there's a girl who actually is mean, but she looks really sweet because she's so short. And they both like each other's best friends. So then they both have to team up and try to get each other to like each other's, or get each other's friends to like them, to each other. This one actually was pretty cute. I did not like it for a long time. I would say I did not enjoy it until like the last 5 episodes of this 25 episode show, or 24 episode show. But those last 5 episodes really brought it together and made the rest of it seem better than it probably actually was. It's just that all the characters are really unlikable, so that's a hard thing to get over, but if you can get past that, then this might be the show for you. And so for that reason, I gave it a 65 out of 100. Infinite Dendrogram. This is a pretty fun one. It's another guy is just playing a video game. He's not stuck. He can leave whenever he wants, and he does sometimes. But this one, the AI they're so realistic, they're indistinguishable from human beings. And his brother plays the game, and he's a bear. It was very cute, very wholesome. The problem with this show is it really just felt like the whole first season was just world building. There's not anything too amazing to move the plot along, other than you're just interested to see what's going on in this world, but there's no like really overarching conflict or thing to do for any of the characters. But if you just want to kind of experience it before the next season comes out, whenever or if ever that will happen, then this is an interesting show to watch. And this is why I gave it a 65.5 out of 10.
Now it's purple!
Their reactions to basic flame tests.
Dr. Stone, it's about what if the whole world turned to rock, and then millions and millions of years later, this one guy who's so smart he knows everything, he stops being a rock. And so now that he's free, he's gonna try to rebuild the world to make it what it was. But then this really buff guy thinks, nah man, the world sucked. And so he's gonna try to kill the smart guy. Will the smart guy live, or will the buff guy kill the smart guy? This is probably one of the most creative animes I've seen. They go into this deep explanation of how all the science works and how you could actually recreate more or less modern inventions from the resources that were available in more like Stone Age. So that's pretty cool. The pacing is good. I felt bored most of the time. It's kind of like when you look at a painting and you're like, wow, that must have been so hard to do. I don't care. But overall, I think the show is really good. And I think if you're not me, if you don't have something wrong with me in the way that I have something wrong with me, you will love this show. So that's why I gave it a 67. Top of C tier is A Silent Voice. A Silent Voice is a really beautiful anime movie. So higher budget, really gorgeous visuals and soundtrack. It's about a guy who ends up being the bully because that seems to make him more popular. But the person that he bullies is deaf, and so that's really sad, obviously, but the kid doesn't have like the awareness to understand why that's so terrible. So when he gets older, he realizes all these things and feels terrible about it. And now everyone who was cheering him on for like being the funny guy, making fun of kids, now they think he's a bully because they're so high and mighty. So it's kind of about dealing with hypocrisy and peer pressure and bullying and making up for past wrongdoings, but then also depression and suicidal thoughts. And it deals with just a lot of really heavy stuff, and it's pretty well done. There's another one that everyone says, oh, to make you cry, but you know, obviously I can't cry, so it did not make me cry. But I wish it did. I wish it made me cry because I feel like I feel like it was rude of me to not have cried, but I simply cannot for some reason. This was a really good movie. I just I wouldn't want to watch it again, and I didn't feel good watching it because it's pretty sad. So I gave it the highest I could put a C tier, 69.9 out of 100. We're on a B tier. These are good animes. These are very enjoyable. Would watch more than once. All right. At the bottom of this, we have the 10th best anime that I watched, Kaguya-sama: Love is War. Now, this is a brilliant anime. It's about the president and the vice president of student government. And the president and the vice president of the student government, they're maybe they like each other, but they will never admit that because they think that admitting that they like the other person would be like admitting defeat. And so it's this whole game where they're trying to get the other person to admit it so that they can admit it themselves. And it's really, really, really funny. It's very funny. It's very creative. I highly recommend you watch it. And for that reason, I gave it a 71. It also spawned the Chica dance. That is it. It's this dance. That's from this show. Number 9, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions. This is a show about all these people that wake up in a fantasy world, but they don't know how they got there, but they don't remember their last life. They just know this feels new and weird. And it's a really fresh and kind of disturbing take on the isekai genre. Isekai being, I'm from another world, now I'm in this world. But it shows how all these people in this world, just because they have a sword or they can cast a spell or whatever, it doesn't just give them plot armor. And that's probably the best thing about this show. There is no plot armor. And how in normal video games and whatever, you kill monsters and then you can sell the monster parts for money, or you can get experience. This show goes, hey, that's pretty awful, so you guys go try to kill that goblin guy. But yeah, he probably has a family. You're gonna cut off his ears and go into town and sell him for gold? You're disgusting. So this show is really interesting, and when it has its peaceful moments, it's so peaceful and beautiful. And then when it has its intense moments, it's very stressful. And I really like this show, and overall, that is why I give it a 72 out of 100.
See? We've been sparring for half a minute, and look. He's had time to change clothes, make tea, and build a model of Osaka Castle.
Number 8 is Attack on Titan. Wait, what? Number 8 is Assassination Classroom. It's about an alien who, after blowing up the moon, threatens to destroy the Earth unless they let him teach an underprivileged class. So he teaches this class how to assassinate him, but they can't because he's really fast and he can regenerate and he has tentacles and he's yellow. But he ends up being a real stand-up guy. He teaches them all these wonderful life lessons. He's really uplifting and gets them to all of their life goals and to realize their own potential. For having such a large cast, by the end, you feel like you really know all these characters. There's probably more than 30 main characters. It's insane, but it's wonderful. Another show, everyone says, oh, it's gonna make you cry. Apparently it doesn't. So I span it out because that was my workout show. I'd watch it while I worked out. So obviously I did not watch it that frequently, but it was pretty darn good, and that's why I give it a 74 out of 100.
Welcome to military school. All this training will probably be useless because 90% of you will die anyway.
Number 7 is Attack on Titan. Now this is more specifically Attack on Titan season 2 and 3. This is because I watched season 1 maybe 2 years ago, and I wrote it off as like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's whatever, it's kind of gimmicky. But then season 2 is just like, wah, and season 3 is like, wah, wah. That's Oreo. But really, it's very good. It's about a world where it's kind of like a zombie apocalypse movie, except instead of zombies, they're these ginormous human-looking guys. Only they're really strong and they eat people. And so the last living members of society live within these giant walls. But then one day, oh no, a giant titan destroys one of the walls. So then they're like, well, shoot, we better do something about this because we can't hide anymore. They're too big. And then the main guy, small spoilers because you find this out like 3 episodes in, can turn into a titan. So, you know, is he gonna help them save humanity, or is he gonna do something wrong? The pacing for the first season is not amazing, but it really picks up second and third season. The music is consistently wonderful. The art style is really gorgeous, but it is so gory and gruesome. I'm gonna say don't watch this if you are easily turned off by blood or flesh or people eating people. It's pretty gross. And that is why I give it a 74.5 out of 100. Number 6, Classroom of the Elite. This is a show about what if there was a school that you had to live at? And you can't leave the school. But everything you would need is at the school. So there's malls, there's restaurants, there's all this stuff, and your currency is determined by your grades. And also everyone is put into a class, and your classes are all competing for the best grades and then the most money. And it has really interesting characters, pretty darn good pacing. It's pretty fast paced. This is one that I don't know as much why I really enjoyed it, but I really did enjoy it, and it's very cool. Shout out to Kale for recommending this to me. I would not have seen this or even thought to watch it had you not said it was okay. So I'd actually say it was better than okay. I'd say it was pretty dang good. And for that reason, I gave it a 75 out of 100.
Whether you realize it or not, you are a ladies' man.
Number 5 is Steins Gate 0, which is kind of like an alternate route of how the show could have gone. Obviously, Steins Gate 0 would not exist without Steins Gate. I'm dressed as him, Okabe. Look at it. It's my best attempt. It's what I had in the closet. Steins Gate 0 is wonderful. It's not as good as Steins Gate, obviously. I just feel like it dragged a lot. The beginning hits you so hard and it's so wonderful. And then the rest, it slows down quite a bit, but then it picks back up and then it slows down a lot again. And then it gets awesome. So I'm not gonna say what it's about because I will get to, it's an alternate ending more or less to Steins Gate. And because it doesn't stand on its own, but I'm going to distinguish it, I'm gonna say it's a 76 out of 100.
Man, this stinks.
Number 4, the 4th best anime I watched in quarantine is Angel Beats. Angel Beats is such a bizarre anime. I feel like the harder you think about it and the harder you try to figure it out, the more confused you'll get. I'd say this one is a bit more of a guilty pleasure. It's about a guy who wakes up at this school and this group of people are like, hey, we're all trapped in this school, and then there's an evil kind of like robot woman, and she's trying to stunt our creativity and make us do boring things, but we're gonna shoot her in the head. And they have all these like elaborate schemes or whatever, but it's very interesting. It's very cute. It has some of the best music of any anime that I've ever seen, and it has a really gorgeous art style despite being a little bit dated at this point. The characters are all so good and they're so memorable, even though none of them are really built that much into. Apparently the show is a lot shorter than it was supposed to be, and you kind of get that feeling while you watch it, but regardless, I loved this show. I loved Angel Beats. So definitely recommend you watch it. It is also a very emotional show. Another one that everyone says you'll cry, but I don't even need to say that I'm gonna say it. I didn't cry, but yes, you might cry. It is very good, and that is why I gave it a 79 out of 100.
Stand down, all of you. I'm dealing with him on my own.
Now at the top of B tier, and a lot of people will say, how is this not S tier? It's gotta be S tier, put it in S tier. Oh, and that show that is that I am so apologetic about not being head over heels for is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is a show about a world where all these magic users work for the government and they carry out the government's deeds. And our main character and his brother agree to work for the government so that they can hopefully one day discover a magical item that will help them bring their mother back from the dead. It kind of feels like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but the main character is really annoying, like really annoying. And the show has a wonderful cast of characters. It has a very confusing magic system, and the themes are incredibly deep, and I'm sure they require much more in-depth analysis than I took the time to give to them, and or I am really stupid and cannot understand this show. But it was deeply interesting. I think it had a pretty strong start, a pretty boring like second half of the beginning, like second half of the first third. And then the first half of the first third was good, and then really boring. It got really boring until about the second half of the third, and then it got good. So stick around because it gets good. It deals with pretty heavy philosophical themes as well. And so if you're a thinker man or thinker woman, you'll like this show probably. Also pretty sad at various moments, so watch out. And for all these reasons, I gave it a 79 out of 100. Now, none of the shows that I watched ended up making it to S tier. So, but the best ones I have are A tier, so here are those. And for A tier, I consider these shows amazing. I would rewatch them several times, over and over and over again, if need be, because I just loved them. Huh? So my second favorite anime that I enjoyed watching during quarantine was Seven Deadly Sins. Seven Deadly Sins is a medieval fantasy show wherein a group of people were framed and exiled from a kingdom of magical knights. Those who were exiled were called the Seven Deadly Sins. The show follows the princess who herself thinks that there's something going wrong within the kingdom, some sort of corruption. So she seeks out the Seven Deadly Sins to help her bring back peace to the world. And it's incredibly fun. The journeys are amazing. Now I had seen seasons 1 and 2 before, but I rewatched the entire thing in preparation for season 3, which I also watched. This show is, again, probably more of a guilty pleasure, but I feel that the characters, the action, the world building, and the pacing all make this show wildly interesting. I'd say if you have not watched any animes before, this might be a good one to start with, except for the fact that the main character continuously is inappropriate to the female side character, and it gets really annoying, and it just happens and no one acknowledges it really, and then it goes away and it'll be gone until the next episode. It probably just happens like once per episode. Now the third season was not amazing. A lot of people had issues with it, especially in terms of the animation. It seemed to be much more rushed and likely had a much lower budget. However, I would say the show overall was still very enjoyable. And this is one show that I definitely could say I'd watch several times, and that is why I gave it an 88 out of 100.
I wrote Makise on here plain as day.
I assumed it meant Makise pudding, you know, like a brand name perhaps, or some secret code as to its probiotic properties.
You are so full of it!
Who is this Makise chap anyway?
It's me, damn it!
And the number one best anime that I saw in quarantine was Steins Gate. Steins Gate is really interesting and really difficult for a lot of people to get through because in the beginning, it really just is a show about a group of friends. One of them is the incredibly bizarre, eccentric, and at times cringy and embarrassing mad scientist Okabe, who's working with his friends to try to create a time machine. And while the beginning of the show is more focused on establishing the relationships and the characters, the second half of the show deals with philosophy, ethics, morality, violence, corruption, government, time travel hijinks, fate, and the meaning of life. This show, in my opinion, has the best use of time travel I've ever seen. And it's something that you really just have to push through to get to the amazing, amazing essence of what makes this show so incredible and unique. And for that reason, I gave this show an 89.5 out of 100. The only reason that I didn't put into S tier is because of the slow pacing in the beginning. And so that's it. Those are the 22 anime that got me through quarantine. I'd recommend that you watch the ones that I thought were good or the ones that I thought were bad. It's really up to you. And if you try Steins Gate, just push past it, man. Push past that beginning because it gets so good. And of course, these are just my opinions. I'm sure yours differ wildly. And that's the fun thing about existing. You don't have to, so you don't even have to tell me. You don't even have to say, I totally disagree. Because that doesn't, I don't care. That's and so that's it. So that's all. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I'll see you next time, and have a good one.